The trenches were already a nightmare before the dead arrived. Mud swallowed boots with every step. The air smelled of smoke, blood, and wet earth. Artillery screamed overhead as soldiers ducked behind splintered wooden supports, waiting for the next shell to fall. Private Daniel Mercer gripped his rifle and climbed over the trench wall. "Move! Move!" someone shouted behind him. Men rushed forward, across the broken battlefield, charging toward the enemy line through thick gray fog that rolled across the ground like a living thing. Then the shell came. A deafening whistle cut through the air. Daniel barely had time to turn before the explosion slammed into the ground beside him. The blast threw him backward, and the world went dark. When he opened his eyes, everything was silent. Too silent. Daniel groaned and pushed himself up from the mud. His ears rang violently, and the battlefield looked different somehow. The gunfire had stopped. The fog had thickened, swallowing everything beyond 20 yards. "Hello?" he shouted hoarsely. No answer. He staggered toward the trenches again, but they looked abandoned. Rifles lay scattered in the mud. Helmets rested beside bodies that didn't move. Daniel wiped dirt from his face and tried to focus. Then he heard it. Shuffling, slow, dragging footsteps, somewhere in the fog. "Who's there?" he called. A shape appeared. At first Daniel felt relief, another soldier stumbling through the smoke. The figure wore a torn uniform and lurched forward unsteadily. "Hey!" Daniel waved. "Over here!" The soldier came closer. Too close. The fog parted just enough for Daniel to see its face. The skin had turned gray and rotten. One eye hung loosely in its socket. Its jaw moved in a slow chewing motion as thick black blood dripped from its mouth. The thing lunged. Daniel fired. The rifle cracked through the fog, and the creature dropped into the mud. Daniel stared down at it, his hands shaking. "What the hell?" Another shuffle echoed behind him. Then another. Shapes moved in the fog. Dozens. Daniel ran. He sprinted across the battlefield toward the nearest ruined structure, a shattered stone building half collapsed by artillery. He burst through the broken doorway and slammed against the wall, breathing hard. Inside, a rifle snapped up toward him. "Don't move." Daniel froze. The soldier holding the gun lowered it slightly. "Mercer?" Daniel blinked. "Frank?" It was Sergeant Frank Holloway, a friend from his unit. His uniform was torn, his face pale, but he was alive. "You seen them?" Frank asked, grimly. Daniel nodded slowly. "Yeah, I saw them. Outside the building, the shuffling grew louder." Frank motioned toward the broken windows. "They're everywhere. The shelling must have stirred something up, or maybe something followed the bodies." Daniel checked his rifle. "We can't stay here." Frank pointed toward a narrow alley behind the building. "There's another group holed up 2 blocks down. If we can reach them, we might have a chance." A rotten hand slammed against the window. The glass shattered inward as gray fingers clawed through the frame. The dead soldier from the trench pushed halfway inside, jaw snapping hungrily. Daniel fired again. The body dropped, but more shapes pressed against the building walls. "Time to move," Frank said. They burst out the back and ran through the ruins, firing as the dead rose from the fog around them. Zombies staggered through craters and broken streets, drawn by the noise and the living flesh they could smell. Daniel reloaded while sprinting beside Frank. "Tell me the others made it." Frank pointed ahead. A barricaded warehouse stood at the end of the street. Gunfire flashed from its windows as soldiers fought off the advancing dead. "Right there!" Frank shouted. They rushed inside as 2 soldiers pulled them through the door. More rifles joined the fight. Together they fired through the broken windows, cutting down wave after wave of the walking corpses stumbling through the fog-covered battlefield. Daniel leaned against the wall for a moment, breathing hard. The war outside hadn't ended. It had only changed enemies. And as the fog thickened around the ruined town, Daniel realized something chilling. The zombies weren't slowing down. More kept rising from the battlefield. Every fallen soldier, every corpse in the trenches, was standing back up.